Hey guys, for those of you who weren't able to connect on the Zoom link for our Girl Talk in Grace, a virtual space where we sit face to face together, I wanted to go over what we talked about so you don't miss anything. We've been studying women in order, and the last three women that we covered was Martha, Rahab, and Esther. At the women's conference that I spoke at, we talked about Martha and distractions and how her heart had shifted. She started serving from a place of love, but how it turned into bitterness, resentment, frustration, while Mary was sitting at Jesus' feet. And here's what we pulled from that. Sometimes we need to ask for help. We're meant to lean on each other. We're called to stand in the gap, cover one another, and to support each other. Mary likely would have helped if Martha had asked. And I want to be clear that serving was not the problem. The issue was that it started changing her heart. And that could have been prevented if she had invited others in instead of carrying it alone. Then we looked at Rahab and Esther and what it means to stand in the gap. Rahab covered her family with a red cord. Esther stood between destruction and her people. Both stepped into the space between danger and deliverance. That is what we're building. A community of women encouraging other women, standing in the gap, covering each other, lifting each other up, growing together. Because we were never meant to carry this alone. Like Psalm 68, we are building an army. We also talked about the main topic, which was breaking chains and embracing change, where the Bible and science meet. And here's where it gets powerful. What the Bible calls chains, science calls it patterns. What the Bible calls renewing the mind, science calls it rewiring the brain. And what I think is so cool is that God said it first. Paths. God described it before science measured it. The Bible talks about paths over and over. In Proverbs 4:26, it says, give careful thought to the path. In Jeremiah 6:16, it says, stand at the crossroads, choose the good path. God is literally describing mental pathways. Science later called them neural pathways. So every thought that you repeat creates a path in your brain. If you think it once, it makes a small trail. If you think it repeatedly, it's a worn path. If you think it constantly, it turns into a highway. God said, watch your path. And then science says your brain builds paths. Same truth, but a different language. Even pruning. God showed us growth before neuroscience explained it. Jesus said in John 15:2 that God prunes. Well, if you look at pruning means cutting back what's not producing so that something better can grow. Now watch this. Science discovered that your brain does the same thing. It's called synaptic pruning. What you don't use weakens. What you repeat strengthens. So every time that you stop feeding a negative thought, you're pruning it. And every time that you choose truth, you're growing a new pathway. God said, I will prune you so that you can grow. And science says that your brain prunes what you don't use. And again, God said it first. Look at renewing the mind. It's the same thing as rewiring the brain. In Romans 12:2, we see be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Science calls that neuroplasticity. Your brain's ability to change. Isn't that awesome? He made it to where our brains can change. God didn't just tell us what to do. He revealed how transformation works. So taking thoughts captive it's interrupting patterns. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says, take every thought captive. That's exactly what science says to do. Interrupt the automatic pattern. That's what I talked about at my conference, the 3 Ps. That's where that comes in, to pause, to pray, and then proceed. That pause is where your power is. Where you're choosing life, you're not drifting. In Deuteronomy 30:19, it says choose life. So God didn't say to drift. He said we have to choose. We have to make a choice. Because drifting is your brain running on old patterns. It's like the path of least resistance when you just drop your trickle water down. So choosing is you're stepping in with intention. And science explains it, why we drift. Your brain is built for survival, not transformation. It repeats what is familiar, easy, energy efficient. And did you know about 40 to 45% of your daily life is a habit? That means almost half your life you're not choosing, you're repeating. Your brain is also constantly trying to conserve energy. Even though it's a small part of your body, it uses a very large portion of your energy. So once something becomes a habit, it takes less effort, it becomes faster, it becomes automatic. That's why patterns can feel so hard to break sometimes. Here's another powerful statistic where it can take roughly 21 to 66 days to build a new habit pattern. And people who write down their goals are up to 42% more likely to achieve them. And when we say it out loud and we share it, your success rate, it increases even more. So science is literally proving what you repeat is what you become. There are two different parts of your brain at work. You have your amygdala, which is the part that's like it's fast, it's emotional, it's reactive. And then you have your prefrontal cortex, where it's slow, intentional, and choosing. So if you don't pause, you don't choose. But then there's something else that your brain also runs on. It's called a dopamine loop. Dopamine is a chemical that your brain releases when something feels rewarding or brings relief. And here's what's important. Your brain doesn't just reward what's healthy. It rewards what relieves pressure in a moment or after very long moments. So even unhealthy patterns can feel good because they bring quick relief. Like, for example, you feel overwhelmed, so you avoid. Well, that avoidance gives you temporary relief. Or if you feel anxious, where you start trying to control everything. Having control makes you feel like you have temporary relief. Or if you feel rejected and you find yourself people-pleasing because you feel rejected. Well, when you're people-pleasing and people are getting what they want from you, and then you feel some sort of gratification from that or accomplished, so you feel a temporary relief. And see, your brain goes, ooh, that worked. Do that again. And every time you repeat it, the loop gets stronger. The path gets stronger. More defined. Easier for that water to take, the path of least resistance. So your brain starts choosing the pattern automatically, not because it's right, but because it's familiar and relieving. So patterns like avoidance, control, people-pleasing, shutting down, they all start to sometimes even feel normal, even when they're not healthy. But here's your freedom moment. You're not broken. You've just been patterned. And what's been patterned, it can be changed. So how do we break chains? How can we use God and science together? Step one is awareness. You can't break what you won't acknowledge. Become aware. Step two, interrupt. So I see it like taking thoughts captive. You have to pause and you have to call that thought out, or that feeling, whatever it is that's coming on. You have to pause, take a breath, pause, think about it. Step 3, replace. Replace lies with truth, renewing the mind. Step 4, repeat. Repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. Repetition rewires your brain and starts to make other pathways. Step 5, accountability. Healing grows faster in community. I know a lot of us in here, we don't always want to reach out, or we feel like, we're supposed to have it all together, or I don't want to be a burden. I'm sorry, I thought this was encouraging women in here, and our brains are telling us this, but we need to replace it with the truth. And God says we weren't meant to do it alone. So I really feel that being rooted, this is what sustains it. Colossians 2, 6-7, be rooted in Christ. The deeper the roots, the stronger the system. It's just like your brain. So what you repeat gets wired deeper. If your roots don't change, your path won't either. So you don't just drift into presence, you choose it. You don't drift into purpose, you align with it. You don't drift into freedom, you shift into it. This is both sanctification, or spiritual growth, and neuroplasticity, brain rewiring. Some of you don't need more strength, you need new roots. See, freedom isn't a moment. Freedom is when you respond differently. And let's increase those chances. Let's declare it loud. I will not drift into old patterns. I will shift into truth. I will shift into freedom. I will partner with God in my healing. And I am rooted in Christ. Thanks for listening.